What does the Secretary of Commerce do? Until now, mainly promote U.S. businesses abroad. It had not been a high-profile job till Gina Raimondo turned the second-tier agency into a center of job creation, manufacturing, and national security. Once the governor of Rhode Island, Raimondo, at 52, seems to have come out of nowhere to become a rising star of the Democratic Party and of the Biden administration. As Commerce Secretary, she's running new projects that could touch the lives of every American. And she's helping lead the expanding Cold War with China and confront Russia's aggression in Ukraine. The battlefield for both those conflicts is technology.
The story will continue in a moment.
If you think about national security today, in 2024, it's not just tanks and missiles, it's technology. It's semiconductors, it's AI, it's drones. And the Commerce Department is at the red-hot center of technology.
And at the red-hot center, a global chip war that ramped up, says Gina Raimondo, when Russia invaded Ukraine.
The Commerce Department stopped all semiconductor chips from being sold to Russia. Every drone, every missile, every tank has semiconductors in them. And you know, Leslie, you know we're being effective because shortly after we started that work, we heard stories of the Russians taking semiconductors out of refrigerators, out of dishwashers, out of breast pumps, getting the chips to put them into their military equipment.
However, the Russians are now working their way around this.
They are.
Successfully, and they're doing better in the war probably because of this.
You are right in what you say.
But, she says,
it's absolutely the case that our export controls have hurt their ability to conduct the war, made it harder, and we are enforcing this every minute of every day, doing everything we can.
These are some of the enforcers.
We should talk about our controls on Russia.
Raimondo's team at Commerce that monitors and polices the ban on any company in the world from selling products with American chips in them to Russia. But not just Russia.
I've made sure that the most advanced American technologies can't be used in China.
The Chinese warn that these export controls could trigger an escalating trade war. Trade with China accounts for 750,000 U.S. jobs. Mm-hmm. And if trade ends, we lose those jobs.
We want to trade with China on the vast majority of goods and services. But on those technologies that affect our national security, no.
Those advanced chips are in consumer goods. Banks use them, hospitals. This is going toward products that are made for civilian use.
Yeah, well, they also go into nuclear weapons, surveillance systems, and we know they want these chips and our sophisticated technology to advance their military.
Her toughness has made her a target in China, where fake ads have her promoting the new Chinese-made smartphone. Last year, the government in Beijing hacked her email, and when she was in China, on a trip ironically to improve relations, the tech company Huawei introduced that new smartphone with an advanced Chinese-made chip. It was kind of in your face, as if to say, look at the chip that we have. And it was a pretty good high-level chip, right?
Well, I have their attention, clearly. And
they've gotten yours.
Well, what tells me is the export controls are working because that chip is not nearly as good. It's years behind what we have in the United States. We have the most sophisticated semiconductors in the world. China doesn't. We've out-innovated China.
Well, you mean Taiwan.
Fair.
While American tech companies design the world's most advanced chips, none are actually made in the U.S. 90% of them come from Taiwan, and they are key to the future of U.S. military weaponry. And China, from time to time, threatens, the wolf, to invade Taiwan. And some people say the whole reason is to get their hands on those chips.
That's a problem. It's a risk. It makes us vulnerable.
The problem of our outsourcing production goes way beyond high tech, with millions of American workers having lost their jobs that went overseas, something Raimondo knows firsthand, growing up as the youngest child in an Italian-American family in Rhode Island.
This is the old Bulova watch factory where my dad worked for almost 30 years.
Her dad lost his job when Bulova abandoned the factory in 1983 and moved its operations to China.
It's hard for you to imagine it now as you look around here, but this was a bustling place. They had 1,000 people working here, food trucks on the sidewalk, an electroplating shop there, a tool and die shop there, and now this is what you have.
And how old were you?
I was in 6th grade, but I saw the toll it took on my dad and my family.
And that influenced her career choices, from when she studied economics and played rugby at Harvard.
So this is my office.
To when she left a high-paying job as a venture capitalist to run for public office in Rhode Island.
This was the day that I was sworn in as state treasurer. And those are my parents. That was my dad.
That's your dad?
Super
The
proud
man
of
who worked
me.
at Bulova?
The man who worked at Bulova, the man who taught me about manufacturing, taught me that a job is about your pride, ability to take care of your family, not just a paycheck.
Married with 2 children, Raimondo, a Rhodes Scholar and Yale Law School graduate, was elected the state's first female governor in 2014 as a moderate, pro-business Democrat. Liberals in your party, this is a quote, look upon you as a sellout to big business.
I think that's ridiculous. I hold businesses accountable as much as anyone. When I tell them they can't sell their semiconductors to China, they don't love that, but I do that.
In late 2020, President-elect Joe Biden called her about leading the Commerce Department, which till then managed without much fanfare or headlines a mishmash of agencies and assignments ranging from monitoring the weather to measuring the level of contaminants in household dust. So one day, President-elect Biden calls you and said, "What about being Commerce Secretary?" And you heard that and thought...
Truthfully, initially I thought, what does the Commerce Secretary do?
Yeah.
And then the President-elect said to me, come, I want you to work with me to help rebuild American manufacturing. And I called my brother, my big brother, and he said, Gina, Dad would be so proud. You gotta do it, you gotta do it. And that was it.
Once at Commerce, she began to lean on Congress.
This is just good business.
To fund her new programs with $100 billion, including $50 billion for the bipartisan CHIPS Act that she is now dispensing to reduce America's reliance on Taiwan.
It's a huge day for the entire country.
Last month in Arizona, she announced her first award for making leading-edge chips in the U.S. to Intel.
We are announcing our intention to invest $8.5 billion in Intel, America's champion semiconductor company.
Intel intends to construct and modernize facilities in Arizona, New Mexico, Oregon, and Ohio. She's made 2 other big awards, totaling $13 billion, to Taiwan-based TSMC and the South Korean company Samsung, to make the world's most advanced chips in Arizona and Texas. Raimondo is also spreading her largesse elsewhere in the country with another huge initiative, the Internet for All program. We went with her to a Corning factory in North Carolina, the world's largest manufacturer of fiber optic cable.
You're looking at fiber on these spools, all different colors. What's inside of there is actually one of the most precise products ever manufactured by man.
Wendell Weeks, chairman and CEO of Corning, is expanding production to make some of the 10 million miles of new cable that's needed to connect the 24 million Americans living mostly in rural America who don't have access to high-speed internet. And under prodding by Raimondo, He's investing Corning's own capital to do it.
We've invested another $500 million and doubled our footprint for the U.S.
When you're spending all this money to connect, small numbers of people who live miles away, the expense almost doesn't make sense.
It does make sense. The internet is no longer a luxury. You need it to see the doctor, to go to school, to do your business, to pay your bills, to sign up for, Social Security. Everyone has electricity in this country. Everyone ought to have the internet.
Together, she says, the Internet for All and the CHIPS Act initiatives will create about 500,000 jobs by 2030. But Wall Street is skeptical. Intel, for example, just reported $7 billion in operating losses.
When you go to pick these different companies to give the money to, it's social industrial policy, something, we gave up because it was shown that private industry does a better job picking. You're smiling.
Well, do they? Because in the case of semiconductors, the market didn't get it right.
How did we lose this?
We allowed manufacturing in this country to wither on the vine in search of cheaper labor in Asia, cheaper capital in Asia, and here we are. We just pursued profit over national security.
There are strings attached to these grants. They have to provide daycare. You want them to have a diverse workforce. Be union workers?
That is not social policy, Leslie.
Sounds like it.
It's math. This is pure math.
What do
You won't have enough workers to do the job unless you figure out how to get women working in the facilities.
But on that point, if they need women and women need daycare, that's a decision for the company to make. Why mandate it if it's what they need?
It's not mandated. To be clear, these are not mandates.
But it's written in there.
It is written, but you know what's funny? I never hear complaints about this from the companies. The only complaints I have are from politicians.
In her 3 years in Washington, Raimondo has elevated the Commerce Department and its secretary into a high-profile player.
China wakes up every day figuring out how to get around our regulations. We got to wake up every day that much more relentless and aggressive. So I bring it every day.
So here comes the inevitable, obvious question that you know is coming your way. You are on a list of future presidential candidates. Does that sound good to you? Is it appetizing?
What sounds good to me is being the best Commerce Secretary there's ever been.
One qualification for high office is being able to duck a question like that.